Hello, everyone. We're so happy to have you here. Thanks for attending. I am the solution marketer for Chatbot and other cognitive solutions, and I work with our team that I'm going to introduce you to, Darren Gosen, who is our head of cognitive services, and product manager, Deb Johnny Paul. So most of you have BMC Helix Digital Workplace, and we're here to tell you how you can get more out of that solution. Chatbot technology can help you deflect up to 30% and more of calls and emails. It can help you drive greater self-service with your users, and it can dramatically increase your employee satisfaction. And Gartner says in the last year there's more than 160% increase in client interest around implementing chatbots and connected technologies. So we're seeing a huge demand, and we wanted to share with you that as digital workplace customers, how you can tap into the power of chatbots. So Darren, you want to take it away?
I will. Thanks, Kelly and Seth. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Darren Gosen, and I lead our cognitive services here for the DSOM unit at BMC. And as mentioned, what I'm going to do today is go through some content on how Chatbot really enhances your digital workplace effort that you have. We're going to talk a little bit about why that is, a little bit about what the solution is, and then I'm going to spend some time also showing you some of the high-level capabilities that we have. So let's get started. Here we are. So let's just start at a bit of a higher level and really around why a digital workplace. So many of you have digital workplace initiatives going on within your organizations, and it's really around engaging employees, because studies have shown that organizations or companies that have the highest customer engagement also have the highest employee engagement. And employee engagement actually really drives the business outcomes that organizations are trying to achieve and the customer engagement that you're trying to achieve. By focusing on your employees and the engagement within your organization, your employees then are able to focus on the business outcomes that you've set for your organizations. And that's really around engaging your customers, delighting your customers, and ultimately driving business outcomes like profitability for your shareholders. So really, the focus here is to engage your employees first and see the benefits through your customers and your stakeholders as well. So what is BMC Helix Digital Workplace? This is a solution that many of you have or are implementing within your organization. And really it is a single pane of glass for your end users to be able to access services, solutions, information that they need to be able to work better. It allows you to create a consumer style or consumer-like, consumer-grade experience within your organization. And what this does is allow you to meet the growing expectations that your employees have within your organization around how they access stuff, whether it be information or services or whatever the case is. The expectation from users is that experiences and digital experiences within our organization need to meet the experiences that we have within our consumer and personal lives. And this expectation is growing, especially as our workforce changes and a new generation comes into our workforce and has an even higher expectation for these types of experiences, and in fact rate them as extremely important to overall job satisfaction and engagement while you're at work. So they're becoming extremely important that we provide these types of consumer-grade experiences, and digital workplace allows you to do that by curating a catalog of information and services really across your organization. It's not just an IT catalog. It's regardless of where the service or information comes from, Digital Workplace allows you to curate that content and provide it in that consumer grade. It allows you to work on the go or wherever you are by leveraging device-agnostic technology and progressive web apps, etc. So there is a difference between Digital Workplace Basic and Digital Workplace Advanced. And I just highlight these because as we start to talk about Helix Chatbot and how Helix Chatbot adds to and augments your Digital Workplace initiative, there are some of the capabilities within Digital Workplace Advanced specifically that we really leverage with the Chatbot solution. Things like the additional knowledge that you'll get with Digital Workplace Advanced. Not sure if you heard, but really around mobile devices and the fact that we're using mobile devices really as a tool to communicate through messaging. And messaging is really at the heart of mobile devices. The second is our tendency now to leverage intelligent assistants within our personal lives. So using Alexa, Google Home, Siri to ask questions and get information very easily within our personal lives is really driving the adoption of using experiences like chatbots and virtual assistants within the enterprise. Typically, we see these types of experiences in our personal lives for a couple of years before enterprises starting to pick them up and make them available within their organization, and that's where we're at today. And then the third is really the massive investment that we've had within AI technology over the past 5 to 7 years. Specifically for the chatbot around natural language processing, but other AI technologies such as image recognition and voice recognition and our cognitive search, etc., have really made the technology now be able to meet the expectation that we have of these types of services. So as Kelly mentioned off the bat, organizations that are implementing these are really looking for specific business outcomes and seeing those business outcomes. So chatbots can deflect 20 to 30% of calls, emails, or chats. So this is really around deflection, and you're allowing your workforce to work on more important strategic initiatives than just the incoming level 0 and level 1 chats that are issues that are coming in. And of the organizations that have implemented it, we've actually seen that 88% have seen those results. So they've seen the deflections, etc. So these are not just hopes or wishes for the chatbot to be able to deflect that. We're seeing within enterprises that we are actually seeing the benefits of it. And then often forgotten when you think about ROI of something like a chatbot and deflection is the increase in customer engagement. Employees and people want to use these experiences if they can help them quicker than picking up a phone and calling and talking to a person. And when that happens, customer and employee engagement and satisfaction goes up on the rise. So Helix Chatbot is our omni-channel experience for Digital Workplace Advanced. And basically it allows your users or employees to choose how they interact with the organization. So they can do so in the messaging and conversational interface of their choice. We support multiple channels like Slack, MS Teams, Skype for Business, our web interface, and SMS. It leverages conversational artificial intelligence to automate responses back to the end user based on what you're saying. So it processes your natural language. And we really see that this chatbot should be able to automate almost all the level 0, level 1 service requests, or at least the majority of the ones that are typically organizations have 70–80% of the issues are the same, and that's their high volume stuff. The chatbot really can automate that. And we leverage our cognitive service or microservice through the chatbot to consume services like IBM Watson Assistant for our chatbot. Well, our cognitive services also consume other AI technologies as well. So when I think about the Helix chatbot, really I think about and the roadmap and what we're building, it's in three areas. One is around conversational experience, and this is really around how do we engage the people using the chatbot. So that's things like the channel in which they want to be, and we want to bring it to them rather than them have to go to a channel. But also the ability to engage them in the conversational flow, give them access to, buttons where it makes more sense, where we can keep them in the chatbot rather than transfer them to other pages, we do so. So it's really around customer experience or user experience. The second is what we call intelligent service delivery, but this is really what kind of things does the chatbot do? What actions can it take for me rather than just give me information? So things like request services or access your service catalog through the chatbot, get information from that's really relevant to me by leveraging cognitive search, etc. And if the chatbot can help me, integrate to a live chat system so that a human can help me and I don't lose continuity of my conversation. And then finally, it's around helping our customers roll out this product and increase adoption. So,
okay. So Darren, before you go on, we have a couple questions that I think it makes sense to address very quickly before you move on. Amin says that you had mentioned Alexa and Google, I guess TensorFlow. He wrote Dialogflow. I think it means TensorFlow. Or no, Google Dialogflow. You know, he asks where the data is stored. Like if you're, I think you were just using those as examples, correct? You aren't saying that that's we're actually integrating with Alexa, or are we?
No, so for our Helix chatbot, we integrate with IBM Watson Assistant. That's what powers our chatbot. The data is stored for the conversations that happen between the end user and the chatbot. The data is stored in both our Helix platform and IBM Watson Assistant. Now, we do use Google for other cognitive solutions like our cognitive automation, et cetera. But if we're talking about our chatbot, it's IBM Watson Assistant.
Okay. And then this is a question I'll let you defer or answer now. It's asking about the relationship and use of chatbot and SRM.
Yeah, so our chatbot works with Digital Workplace Advanced. So I'm going to show you here how our chatbot can leverage Catalog and Digital Workplace Advanced to train the chatbot. So it doesn't work directly with SRM. Now, you would import your services from SRM into Digital Workplace Advanced, and then the chatbot then can train itself, or you can use that data to train the chatbot with what has been imported into Digital Workplace Advanced.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it for the questions for now.
Okay, great. So we're getting short on time. So really, this is just a customer example. Genpact, they have 80K plus users now, I believe. And really, they're an example of an organization that wants the front end, their employees to engage with the chatbot. It's their primary way in which they want their employees to engage with the organization, the IT and HR organizations. So, you know, they've automated a number of processes. They've built, you know, extensive capabilities into their chatbot or trained their chatbot pretty extensively to be able to handle a number of questions. So it's just an example of, and they do it for HR and IT and other lines of businesses across multiple languages. So it's an example of how a global organization is really embracing the technology and the level of engagement that a chatbot can provide, and does so across all lines of businesses and languages. So let me jump here to demonstration. So I want to show you some capabilities across both IT and HR that show some of the different channels that we have and some of the capabilities, specifically the ones that, you know, are integrated with Digital Workplace Advanced. So I'm going to start here in Slack, and I'm going to go to my Slack bot. And really, all you do is tell the chatbot in your natural language what you need or ask the chatbot a question. So if I'm using Slack within my organization, this is very easy. It's much easier than going to a portal, right? So I'll say here, for example, I need to install some software. Now, the chatbot here will process my natural language and start to actually help me through this issue. So it's going to say I can help with that and going to ask me for the reason why I need the software. So this might be, if you went to a portal, a box that says justification, but this is more conversational, right? So I'm going to say here that I need a better text editor. Because what I'm going to do is actually show you end-to-end integration through Digital Workplace Advanced of this user's issue getting resolved. So I'm going to say that I need Notepad++. That's a small application that I can deploy quickly. You can see that there are buttons here. I can also type it if I choose. It's going to ask me which machine. Chatbot's contextual, knows what machines that I have. So I can choose the one that I have available. And it's going to ask me to confirm the request. So I can use my natural language again and say sure or click the button. Now what's going to happen here is the chatbot is now going to actually make this request. So what it's done is it's, through our integration to Digital Workplace Advanced, collected this information in the same way I would fill out a form and provided this information to Digital Workplace Advanced. So if I go here, I'll load up Digital Workplace Advanced and we'll see this request. Now, what I'm going to do is actually load up here this, this is, what we're looking at is the machine Exchange. So I've logged into the machine called Exchange, which is in my demo environment, and I'm going to refresh, click on refresh of the applications that are installed. And you can see, well, it happened very quickly here. It changed from 20 to 21 programs installed. So you can see that Notepad was actually installed here extremely quickly. What happened is Digital Workplace took in that request and the workflow for that service kicked off. And part of the workflow is our out-of-the-box integration to BMC Client Management, which Digital Workplace passed the information that I provided through the chatbot into the connector for BMC Client Management, which went ahead and deployed that software directly onto this machine. So we're talking here an end-to-end use case of user using the channel in which they chose, the automation taking place to take the information collected from the chatbot and automatically deploy the software to the end user. All throughout here, it made sure that the user had access to the software, access to the service, entitlements, etc. So that example really shows how leveraging a chatbot on top of your digital workplace solution, you can really provide a very, very good experience for end users by allowing them to use their channel, but also getting the services or the request or whatever it needs that they need there automated. So I'm going to show a few more use cases here. I'm going to show our web channel. So I'll go into our digital workplace. I'll go to the home, and I'll select our chat icon here. Now, this is our web interface. This can be embedded really on any application that you have. We have what's called a web widget, and it's a little widget that kind of sits in the bottom of any application that you're able to deploy it to. And it provides a way in which users can easily find the chatbot. You'll probably used to it if you go into a banking site or to your TV or internet provider. They have a chat now button there, in which opens up a chat interface. So that's very similar to what we have here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to say hi. So what this is going to do here is the chatbot's going to return this message back. And this is one that I built specifically for this because this wouldn't happen in the real world. The chatbot wouldn't say, hey, I know all this information about you. But I do it to demonstrate the fact that the chatbot has a lot of context about the user and can use that information to make decisions, to be very personal with the user, and to check entitlements, things like that. So that is really key to the personalized experience that you have with the chatbot. I'm going to ask the chatbot a question here. How do I back up Windows 10? And what we're going to show here is another capability that the chatbot has, and this is search. But this is more than just regular search. This is actually leveraging our cognitive search service, which is an option for our chatbot. And this is leveraging an insight engine. So this allows you to do natural language queries on your content, but it also allows you to gain insights from unstructured data within your organization, to search across multiple knowledge bases. So when I select one here, I can view the content. I can scroll through the articles without going back to the chat to see everything that Helix recommended to me. But we can see here, for example, the article author's right answers. So this is third-party content that we've plugged in. I can also rate the relevancy to how relevant this content was to my question. And this goes back into our cognitive search service and actually retrains. So it'll add relevancy or take away relevancy for this article for that specific natural language query. So the search is always improving based off the relevancy. So here,
hey, Darren?
Yes.
So Devendra had a question kind of related back to the request flow, and I know it's a pretty straightforward answer, so I want to go ahead and interject. He asked if you submit a request that requires an approval or has a more complicated workflow than, say, the one example you gave, how would the chatbot handle that?
So the chatbot will take in the request, and then the approval will happen once the request is done. So the chatbot will approve that. It can provide a status to the user and say, okay, well, your request has been made. It's now waiting for approval. And then whoever gets the approval on the back end through the digital workplace workflow will get the approval, and it'll go through the steps there.
Great. Thank you.
So here I'm going to tell the chatbot that I want to talk to a live agent. And this is useful because you need to be able to provide your users with a way to get help if the chatbot's not able to help. And realistically, the chatbot's not going to be able to do everything. So here, the chatbot, you can just ask the chatbot, or you can edit it at times where the chatbot might be confused, suggest to the users that they transfer to a live agent. Here, I'm going to say I want to talk to a live agent. I'll select the topics. And we've done this because now the chatbot can transfer you to either an IT or an HR agent within our business workflows. But here you can see that I've transferred to an agent. Now let me log in here as an agent in Smart IT. We've added our live chat capabilities in Smart IT in our 1908 release. So this is brand new actually. I've logged in as an agent. I can go to live chat, and I'm going to see the chat from the chatbot here. So I can select this. I see the context of the chat that the user had with the chatbot, the recommended articles that have been provided, and all this information in addition to who the customer is, what tickets they have, assets, etc. I also have access to knowledge and templates, etc. So I can go ahead and accept this chat as an agent, and I'll go in here. I'll use one of my canned messages. I'll say, hello, how are you? And I'll send this. Now, the user here is getting this chat from the agent. They should be getting the chat from the agent. I'll say hi. Let's see if the chat comes up here. And it hasn't today. So what this allows agents to do is see the context of the conversation with the chat, but most importantly, allows the users to be able to chat with the agent and get their issue resolved without having to restate the context of their issue, etc. Once the chat is done with the agent, the conversation for the end user goes directly back to the chatbot. Let me refresh this Chrome here. And from the agent here, I'll end the chat. So the issue is resolved. The agent can create a ticket or just close the chat, and a record of this ticket is created. So this is our transfer to live agent. In 1911, what was just released, we've also added this chat capability in business workflows as well. So what this means is that from business workflows, if you're in HR or lines of business, you can chat with a user for IT-centered issues. You can leverage smart IT to be able to chat with an end user, to have your chat in there. And from the end user's perspective, you have one interface, whether it be the web interface or the channels, and users can chat with the chatbot and then be transferred to the appropriate person to resolve their issue. So I'll go back into my chatbot here, and I'm going to show you an example of the chatbot suggesting another chatbot. So I'll say, I need a visa application letter, which is an HR type of issue. And the chatbot here is going to recommend that we transfer to another chatbot. So actually just released about a week ago is a great enhancement to this, where the chatbot will just transfer you in the same window. Here's actually our 1908, so this is a little bit later, where it's transferred us to the HR chatbot. Now, I can go ahead and ask the chatbot this again. In our new release, it just passes the question off. And I'll say, for example, I need a letter. And the chatbot here, since this HR can do multiple letters, isn't exactly sure which one to do. So it's now clarifying with the user which letter that it can provide that the user wants. So it asks the chatbot, did you mean? And I'll say here, employee verification letter. And what that did is now I've also just reinforced the learning in the chatbot. I've told the chatbot that employee verification letter likely translates or is relevant to I need a letter statement. And it doesn't automatically retrain. It needs a bigger data set to then continually kind of learn in increments of which statements work for which use cases. So I'll say that I'm getting a new mortgage and I need my salary information and I need it today, and I'll say yes. Now this is the same thing. It's going to go and create this request. You can see here that I can see the request, the information about the request, go back to the chat. I can also rate my service, rate my experience, and this is important information for the organization so that they can see how people are feeling about the chatbot and see feedback. Now, I want to finish on the training of the chatbot because it's important to be able to quickly enable capabilities for your chatbot. So here I'm going to say I want to give a spot bonus. Now, this is an example here of the chatbot saying, I couldn't find anything related to your issue. So it means that it hasn't been trained for this issue, and it's searched the knowledge base, and it hasn't gotten sufficient information to provide to the user, like we showed before. So it's saying, well, you want me to create a generic request for you that someone will follow up with or connect you with a live agent. Here's an example of it recommending it. Now, I want a better experience as an end user for this. And me as an organization or working with my organization know that we actually have a service for this in our catalog. So let's use that service to be able to train the chatbot. So I'm going to go to the Digital Workplace catalog here. I'll go to the catalog. And let's go and find that service. I'll go to my services. We're going to find this service for spot bonus. And I'll use this service here and the questions in it. So we'll look at the questions, for example, the definition of the service. You can see there are a number of questions that are asked when someone wants to request this service. I'm going to use it to actually train the chatbot. So I'll go to my published version. I'll enable in chatbot. Now, what this does is it takes the definition of your service, the questions, the expected answers, and it actually is going to through our cognitive microservice, train the chatbot in Watson Assistant, which we use as the backend layer. So we'll say that we want this trained in our HR chatbot. We're going to click next. We're going to confirm that this is indeed the employee spot bonus is the correct service. And we can add variations. So these are different ways that users might ask for the service. This is going to be fine, but you can say, you know, I want to incent my employees or whatever the case is. So we can click next, and here's where it has taken the questions and expected answers and provided it in a way in which we can conversationalize it if we want. So it'll say, what's the full name of the employee? We're going to skip to the next question. I'm going to say, show these as buttons or options for our interface. I'll do the same for the following question. We're going to set why the employee deserves the bonus. And we're not going to include the summary that you would typically have in a service because it doesn't make sense for a conversation. So when I click next and I click publish, what this is doing here now is building a conversation and training data model for the chatbot automatically. So you don't need to go into the AI provider and build all of that, build the integration into our catalog, build a conversational flow that checks for entitlements. All of that stuff is done automatically through this capability. So if I go back to our chatbot here, let's find the one that we had, HR chatbot. I'm not going to refresh the page, but I'm going to ask the same thing. I want to give a spot bonus. Now, it takes a couple of minutes to do this, or a minute or so. So this is kind of as I expected. It still couldn't find anything, so it gives me the same response because it's, again, it hasn't quite finished its training and it's looked in its knowledge base. Let's try this again. Give a spot bonus. So here, the third time, it took, I guess, probably a minute there. You see the chatbot now responded totally different. So it says, what's the full name of the employee? I'm going to say Kelly for a nice introduction and for covering for me. What type of reward? So I will say, you may not have noticed, but there's conditional questions in there. So I'll say Bravo points, and it's going to say, why does this employee deserve a bonus? I'll say, just quickly, good job. And it's going to submit the request once I confirm the details. Now, I'll do it once more because I want to show you that it actually took the conditionality of the service and built it into that conversation flow as well. I want to give a spot bonus, and we're going to say to Jenny here, who's been helping, and I'm going to say cash. Now you see the chatbot is asking a different question here because our service has conditional questions where you might ask a question that's different based because of the answer from the previous question, and it will build all of that into the conversation. So this is really a key element to our approach to leverage what you have within your service catalog, leverage the data, the knowledge, etc., to get you up and running very quickly with the chatbot. And I'll stop there. That's what I wanted to show. But hopefully this was insightful to you and gives you ideas on how you can engage employees by leveraging conversational interfaces within your organization.
And Darren, I'll be looking for that spot bonus after this call today.
There you go.
Okay, we've got Darren, that was awesome. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing this, having come over from the performance management side of the house, and I'm like amazed, super impressed. So we've got a question from Sanket. He said, a year back, Chatbot couldn't read the lookup questions of DWP catalog. Did it get this capability in 1911?
We do, yeah. So if the answers, I think the question is if the answers are lookup, so the answers aren't stored within Digital Workplace itself, we do have the ability to look up the answers for questions for the chatbot. I think that was 1905.
Okay. I'll just answer yes, and then we'll figure out which versions if you need to follow up. I'm looking just to see if we've got other questions in the chat. No more questions in the chat, or sorry, the Q&A or the chat window. So why don't we go ahead and if you want to do any closing comments, Kelly, or I can go ahead and end the session. In the meantime, we'll give folks a chance to ask any final questions if they're still typing away.
Yeah, thank you. Really just wanted to thank everyone for coming. That just reminded me, we do have user conferences or user groups throughout the year in a variety of locations in the U.S. And at these user conferences, we'll have Darren or other folks. We do a hands-on lab where you can actually, we'll help you set up chatbots and get a first hands-on approach to really figuring it out yourself. And those are a lot of fun. I've done that in Chicago with Darren. So if you see a user group near you, be sure to attend and then let us know that that's a hands-on lab that you'd like to have, and we can probably organize that for you.
Okay, let's see. All right, I think that's it. Unless you guys have any other comments or questions, I think I will go ahead and just close it out. All right, so as I mentioned, the session was recorded. I will edit the recording down and post it back out to communities, and we'll also make sure you'll get an email link. Or you'll get an email from WebEx with the link to that post. Just give me a day or so to get it up there. We'll also use that as a forum for you to tell us what kind of content and information you would like, or how you would like to interact with us. And we'll also make sure that we'll blast out an email to everybody with links to, for example, the documentation, the blog posts, all the stuff that Kelly mentioned, as well as some additional information relating to this. We hope this was useful. I'm getting some very positive comments in the chat window in the Q&A. And if you'd like to do some follow-up in the very near future, just let us know and we'll be happy to schedule it. And with that, I will go ahead and end the session. Thanks everybody for your attendance.